here we have a 3 tapland hand. Let's go ahead and keep it. We're missing a white, but we are a 4-color deck, so sometimes we're going to have to keep these sort of hands. And we're going to hope to draw a plains to be able to play this pacifism, or in this case, a Scoured Barrens. That's going to allow us to play the pacifism on turn 3. The fact that we have all these come into play tap lands does mean that a lot of the time we're operating essentially 1 turn behind schedule. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. And it looks like our opponent isn't doing too much to start, so that could be a good sign for us. And so here we have the decision between playing a tap land and playing Yavimaya Enchantress. Let's just go ahead and play the Enchantress. It might die to a removal spell, but if it does, it does. We have ways of bringing it back in our hand in Extract from Darkness. So it could get firebolted. It does. But alright, so not a bad turn for our opponent. The Mog War Marshal is actually somewhat annoying because we don't really want a pacifism either the token or the War Marshal. So onward with the tap lands. Next turn we can deploy our Honden, and so hopefully that can allow us to start generating some card advantage and moving towards taking over the game. We're not in too much danger as of right now, just taking 2 turns because of course our lands gain us life, and now we actually drew that Maelstrom Wanderer. That it's a pretty good draw here because we've already got 2 more lands. It's looking like we can likely get to 8 lands before the game ends for sure. Although our opponent has Avarax, which is pretty good, assuming that another Avarax gets found here, and it did get found. So we're facing Avarax Beatdown at this point. Hopefully that isn't good enough to get the job done for our opponent, but it's going to put us down to 16. So we'll see what we draw off this Honden here. Alright, so mission accomplished. We now have a second Honden, so we're just going to pacifism one of the Avaraxes and start to get this Honden chain going. And we actually have to be worried about running out of cards in our deck, just with the blue Honden drawing us cards each turn. So we're going to be gaining 4 life a turn, which is definitely good. Our opponent did not search up another Avarax, so looks like either our opponent has an Avarax in hand, or that was just the last Avarax in our opponent's deck. And so there is that beautiful black Honden. And yeah, I don't think we're even going to bother casting this Commune with the Gods. Let's just put our Honden into play. It's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on our opponent. And we're moving closer to this Maelstrom Wanderer. So, even though we're going to take a decent chunk of damage, this Honden synergy is pretty sweet. So let's see what our opponent can at least try to do about these Hondens. It looks like our opponent does have another Avarax, which is pretty solid right now. It's going to mean we're taking a total of 8 damage. So I'm actually more worried about milling out, as funny as that is, than losing to these Avaraxes, but maybe that's a little bit silly. So it looks like our opponent discarded 3 cards and is down to only 1 card in hand. And there's Visara. Visara is good. We could also just play our Maelstrom Wanderer. So definitely got some good options here. And yeah, alright, let's go for the Maelstrom Wanderer. Been waiting to cast this thing. So why not take this opportunity and just slam it? And we'll see what we get. We could even get the green Honden to fully acquire all of the Hundens. And there is a Phantom Monster, so that's pretty good. And let's see what else. Oh my god, this is absurd. There it is. Exactly what we wanted. The green Honden. And our creatures have haste. So we definitely don't want to die on our turn. Or on our opponent's turn. That would be bad. But we also kind of want to get in some damage here. So let's go ahead. Hopefully this isn't too greedy, but gonna attack here for 7. And we'll see what our opponent can do. And alright, Mog War Marshal, that isn't very scary. And if we untap and make 4 Saprolings, that's pretty sweet. Not too scared of these Avaraxes, so just gonna take the hit. Alright, here we go. So we're definitely going to make our opponent discard their last card with the Honden. Now we're up to 16. And it looks like it was actually a Braids. Interesting. And remember, all of our creatures have haste now, which is also pretty relevant. So we can play Visara if we want to, and it will have haste. And it looks like our opponent is going to concede due to all of this Honden pressure. So they have had enough, as we say. That was pretty absurd. So this is the time where we were like, okay, at least we didn't mill out with our own blue Honden. That would be pretty bad. So, alright, time for sideboarding. Kind of thinking the Hymn to Torak could be good in this matchup. Feels like we don't need the Orboy Uprising. It might just have been a mistake to play it in the first place. Monk Idealist, we might still want it. Peregrine Drake is actually pretty appealing. It's just a 5 mana play. Pretty powerful card in and of itself. But since we're boarding in the Hymn to Torak, we probably do want another swamp in exchange for a plains. And let's see, do we want to... We have to sideboard out 1 more card, or we could just keep it at 41, which is not unreasonable, just because you can see from that game how much of our deck we're drawing, we're going through in a single game. So, yeah, I mean, we can just go ahead and play 42 cards. That may seem crazy, going up to 18 lands and 42 cards, but with the blue Honden, if we're drawing 4 or 5 cards, we need to have a way to kill our opponents. We were close to not being able to. We would have been able to get the job done, but I like this sideboard plan a reasonable amount. And we'll see. Our opponent is going to be on the play. We know that we are up against 3 Avaraxes as one of the primary win conditions in our opponent's deck. So, looking at this opener, we're definitely light on lands. That's the biggest issue with the hand. It's pretty close, but gonna try to keep and draw some lands. We have a black source for this Honden, and now we have a blue source for our Mana War, so we're just missing the green, basically, which isn't the worst place to be. Annihilate can kill an Avarax, so it's still fine in this matchup, even though our opponent is black. And so it looks like we got a little bit lucky just to draw these 2 lands here, but sometimes you draw well, sometimes you don't. In this case, we drew the land, so hopefully we'll have a solid game here working up to this turn 4 Honden. I wonder if our opponent's just going to be like, oh, another Honden, that's game. And so we don't really even need to play this Yavimaya Enchantress because we don't want it to get firebolted. Our opponent's not doing too much, so we can just work towards the Honden here. Ooh, okay, Braids. That's pretty good here. It's gonna mean we're not able to do everything we want to in this game, but we should still be fine. I'm gonna sacrifice the Dismal Backwater to start off, and then Mana War the Braids. That was a card our opponent discarded in the last game. Almost forgot about it, but could end up being good in this game. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It stopped us from playing our Honden on turn 4, and alright, this Pangolin is going to resolve. There's not much we can do about it. So we can just simply play our black Honden and start get our opponent discarding cards. That's probably the best option, but we're definitely on the back foot here. So this isn't going to be the sort of explosive game last time. If we do draw an untapped land, that would be nice, but we don't have that many untapped lands in our deck. Alright, so there's the Braids and the Firebolt, which we were expecting. And our opponent did have it, so that is pretty good. Definitely worried about this Braids at this point. And we're going to have to sacrifice one of our lands. So which one is it going to be? Probably a Plains. That way we're still keeping all of our colors. And our opponent's going to still need to discard cards, but we're more worried about the threats on the board. What we'd like to draw would have been something like a Pacifism, but that did not float to the top of our deck, unfortunately. This Yavimaya Enchantress may be able to hold back the Braids, but the Pangolin is still going to get through. And our opponent has to also sacrifice lands, but it looks like they have more lands and also more basics, so this Braids doesn't affect them as much. There's an Eyeblight's Ending. That is really not good news at all. So we're going to take 8 here. Still looking for a Pacifism to try to get back in it. And we're just going to sacrifice our basics. Our opponent's running out of cards, but we can't actually do very much at this point. We can play out one of our creatures, but it's pretty likely our opponent's going to remember that they have a Firebolt in the graveyard, and so they can just Firebolt the Millikin. So, although now they're down to only 4 lands. Oh, never mind. Of course, they had a land. So here comes Avarax, and that's going to mean that we're going to have to chump block, it looks like. So yeah, this is probably going to go to a 3rd game at this point. The Braids was actually pretty impressive. Not sure we would have lost if our opponent hadn't had it, but as it turns out, yeah, we're sacrificing another land here. We can play this Blight Soul Druid, but it's just not good enough. So let's go to a game 3 here. Pretty interesting how these games have played out. We went up to the 42 cards, which is kind of weird. It's weird, and maybe it's not correct per se, but having a lot of lands against a deck with braids is also pretty important. Let's see here. We've still got this Monk Idealist. Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit unlucky there to lose that one. And this configuration seems fine. Alright, let's try it one more time. Let's run it back. We're on the play this time. We got some lands. We got a white Honden. Alright. Let's try it. And it looks like our opponent has gone down to 6. So that could end up working in our favor. We'll see. This hand is vulnerable to braids once again, so if our opponent has that card, it will be a bit annoying. But our plan is to just curve into Yavimaya Enchantress, and then the white Honden hopefully will start gaining us some important life. And alright, let's go ahead and play the white Honden. It may be that our opponent has the Firebolt or Carbonize or some sort of removal, but we're just going to let that happen if that's the case. Okay, Phyrexian Rager isn't the worst thing in the world for us. So let's go ahead and play our white Honden. And this is going to make our Enchantress bigger, so it's going to allow us to get in for some damage. And we'll see if our opponent drops braids this turn or not. That will be interesting to see. And it looks like braids is getting dropped this turn, so that's definitely not a good sign for us. So, alright, we could sacrifice our Enchantress, but it's kind of doing a lot of work as of right now. Alright, let's go ahead and sacrifice... Well, alright, let's go ahead and sacrifice a land. It's pretty close, actually. We did draw another land, so we can cast this Mana War here if we want to, but let's start by getting in with our Yavimaya Enchantress. And between these options in terms of what to Mana War, even though it's going to let our opponent draw an additional card, we probably want to just go ahead and get this Phyrexian Rager back into our opponent's hand. Because our opponent's going to have to do something about this braids themselves. So it could be that they don't have a land-heavy draw, but you know, we don't know. So we're likely not going to get to cast this Maelstrom Wanderer this game, but who knows? Hopefully this combination of Honden plus Yavimaya Enchantress plus Mana War ends up working out well for us. If nothing happens to the Mana War, we probably do, though, want to just sacrifice it during our turn, but we'll see if our opponent just replays Phyrexian Rager this turn or does something else. That should be interesting. And it looks like the play is just to play Phyrexian Rager. Okay. That's fine. We do have a Mana War which we can sacrifice here. So let's go ahead and sacrifice that. It's going to allow us to play this Wake of Vultures on our turn. And I like making this attack. Our opponent's now down to 10. But our spot is actually not the greatest. The Braids is kind of menacing, to be honest with you. And so we'll see if our opponent ends up sacrificing the Phyrexian Rager, and it looks like that is what our opponent's going to do. So now that our opponent has 5 mana, this could be an Avarax. Okay, yes, it is an Avarax. Alright. So we'll see if our opponent decides to leave this Avarax back for blocks or to make an attack with it. We've got this Wake of Vultures that is doing quite a bit of work, but here's a Pyrokinesis. Oh my gosh. That might be the game, honestly. That's pretty great for our opponent. Just taking away all of our pressure. So even though we have this Honden sitting in play, all of our permanents are starting to disappear. And unfortunately, our removal is like pacifism. So it's not actually gonna stop a Braids. Yeah, so like we see here a copy of pacifism, but it's not necessarily gonna do us a whole lot. We could take it, put it on an Avarax, but I guess we just go ahead and grab this Honden. I've never seen Braids Cabal Minion be this good, but it's definitely getting the best of us here. So our opponent's pretty likely to just play another Avarax and swing, or play another threat, or just attack. If we get this Black Honden into play and draw an untapped lands, that would be nice, but it's hard to picture how we're going to win here at this moment, because yeah, we just drew the green Honden, but now our lands are just gonna start getting stripped away, so we're just not gonna get to do what our deck is built to do. And even though our opponent's at 10, they've got 4 cards in hand, and yeah, this is just game over for us. There's no coming back, no card we can draw. So we're just gonna concede here. Pretty unfortunate, pretty frustrating, but it happens.